In this video, we'll tell you guys all you need to know about crossing the border into Baja California. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Freely Roaming. My name is Dan.
And my name is Marlene.
Baja California is a place that is near and dear to our hearts. We've been going down there since the 90s. Basically since we were old enough to go down there by ourselves.
Yeah, I started going when I was a kid.
You started going for like holidays and vacations with your family.
Right.
Not just, you didn't go just like fly to like Cabo at a resort. You actually drove down there.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's unusual, I think, for a lot of people to have so much experience driving down there. So we can kind of tell you guys what it is to cross the border. How it is back then and how it is now. It's actually not entirely different, but it has definitely gotten busier. First things first, I think we want to talk about preparation. Mm-hmm. What do you need to prepare? So for example, if you're going to be taking your own car down there, it's a totally different ball game than if you're flying there. Driving your own vehicle down there requires a few more steps that are sort of automated when you take a flight. Mm-hmm. You know, you can fly down to, technically you can fly to Tijuana, but I don't know why you would. Most people just, drive. But you can fly to Tijuana, you can fly to, there's a lot of little dirt strips, but, we're not going to worry about that. You can fly to Loreto, you can fly to San Jose del Cabo. Mm-hmm. Most people fly to San Jose del Cabo. So those are the two popular places, but both of those places are down in Baja Sur. So when you come in from the north, across the border, you'll be coming in through one of the few popular border crossings. We've done crossings at the closest crossing near San Diego, which is San Ysidro. And San Ysidro, I believe, is the busiest border crossing between two countries in the world.
I believe it.
In the volume of people that cross on a daily basis. So because of that, it can be quite busy and challenging, especially if you go on the weekends. If you go on a Friday night, for example, or Sunday afternoon, you're gonna be in line for a long time. You can do it, however, but what we actually recommend is that we actually recommend some border crossings to the east. We've done border crossing at the Tecate border. And Tecate is actually a really easy border, and it's a small border.
Yeah, they have to open the gate for you when we went through it with our truck camper.
It's one car at a time.
It's like, okay, we'll open a little bit more, go through, okay, now we close it again.
But I do feel like more people are using that border now, so because it is so small, maybe it can also get busy. Mm-hmm. And the other border that we use on a regular basis is one of the two borders at Calexico, Mexicali. Mm-hmm. So there's two border crossing at Calexico, Mexicali. One goes through the main town, that's to the west. And then there's another one further east towards Yuma. And that is actually the one that we recommend because you don't get dumped right into the busiest part of town.
It's a little bit chaotic.
It's a little chaotic. And even though it's further away from town, there's still some traffic once you get in. But you can kind of figure out on Google Maps how to kind of veer around and go through more of the rural areas with less traffic. So preparation-wise, what do we need to prepare? What do people need to prepare?
Okay, so you should, if you have a camper, it's a good idea to have everything stocked up. Like your toilets are empty, you have fresh water, drinking water. You can bring food, but also follow the rules of the country. So there's a limit on what kind of fresh fruits and vegetables you can bring across the border, meats and cheeses.
Yeah, there's a limit on how much beer technically you can bring, alcohol, and they will ask.
But a lot of times there's like a green light, red light. So you just never know when you're going to get asked, and it's better to be on the safe side. That's your call.
When she says green light, red light, she literally means when you get to the border and you pull up to the border, if the light is green, you continue forward. You drive through the border. Nobody checks anything. Nobody stops you. Yeah. And we've heard a lot of people who get the green light and they're like, we're in San Felipe before we even realized we were already in Mexico. Nobody stopped us for anything.
They wouldn't go that far down. Well, it's a little exaggerating.
It's possible. They wouldn't go that far before they realized that they didn't cross, but they wouldn't stop because they wouldn't have to.
Yeah, and you needed stop at the border to do some stuff if you're going to be there for a certain amount of time. So,
well, first of all, you need to have documentations for your vehicle. And you also need to have, obviously, passports for yourselves. Documentation for a vehicle are you need registration and or title, depending on whether or not you're going to go onto mainland or not.
Right, or if you don't own your car and it's
if the name on the title
you don't have a title
is to the bank, or you don't have a title. So if you don't own your car outright, meaning that you're making payments, the bank actually has the title, then
you need to ask permission, which our friends just did, and they only gave them 30 days. They were planning to be in Baja longer.
Depending on the bank.
Yeah,
right?
Their bank said 30 days only, and so they're sticking to that rule for insurance and liability reasons.
And again, you may not get the red light where you have to do it. So if you do get the green light, and even when you get the red light, they don't tell you to go to these places and get this stuff done. So what you need is you need to get a temporary import permit for your vehicle if you're planning on leaving Baja California.
Or if you're planning to store your car in Baja and it's a camper. There's been people that had their campers seized this year for the first time. So if that's something that may come up, then it's a good idea to get a tip for your vehicle.
Yeah, so tip means temporary import permit, and you can get that at the Bañercito office. And there's two different types. There's a regular 180-day import permit for basically any kind of car. But if you have a motorhome or RV, then you can get a 10-year import permit, temporary import permit. So that's the one that people usually get if they're traveling with an RV. But be aware that your registration/title needs to say motorhome on it, and that's what they look for. Some people have gotten it. We have gotten it without it saying motorhome in the past, but it's not a guarantee. It kind of depends on the person you talk to. When you come in from California, it's more likely that they will give it to you than not. But we have crossed into Mexico from Belize, and they didn't want to, even though we used the exact same paperwork.
Yeah, so if you get an RV 10-year permit, it doesn't. You don't have to put a deposit down as the 180-day one.
Yeah,
like
180
if you just get a regular car one, it's like $400, and then you have to cancel it, and you will get refunded that money. But if you have an RV, it's just you pay, I don't know, it's like $50 or something to get the permit and no deposit, and you're on your way and no trouble for 10 years.
And the thing about the import permit is that you have to remember to cancel it if you're not planning on coming back, or if you know that it's going to expire before you come back, whether it's the 6-month one or the 10-year one. And if you happen to sell your vehicle without canceling, then
you might be screwed.
It's a huge problem. So make sure you cancel it. We've heard people that got a 10-year permit, sold their vehicle, and now they can't cancel it because the vehicle is in somebody else's hands, but the permit was issued in their name.
Yeah.
So now they can't get another one with another vehicle.
Yeah.
And it also goes for the person who bought the vehicle.
Yeah.
If they're trying to come in with that vehicle into Mexico, they're going to see, there's still a permit out for this vehicle, this VIN number. We can't give you another one. You can't do anything with it because it's in somebody else's name. If you're wondering what you should do at the border as you're leaving at all, I think it's safer to just cancel it, even if it's a 10-year permit.
Yeah, if you're somebody that travels.
But sometimes you can get screwed, kind of like what we did, because we got a 10-year permit going in, and then we canceled when we went to Guatemala, and then when we came back into Mexico through Belize, they didn't want to give us a 10-year, and they asked us, why did we cancel our old one? We followed this rule,
we were gonna
we weren't planning on coming back.
Return to Mexico, and then we had to change of plans, but.
Yeah, so that's something you got to think about with the temporary import permit. Also, there's this thing called the FMM, which is basically a tourist visa.
Yeah.
And every person needs to have it. It used to be that they didn't check for Baja, but now it's required. In fact, I've heard stories about...
It's required, and I think it's like, nobody checks, who cares? But
Yeah.
You're going into a foreign country and they have immigration rules, just like, any other country.
Right, you would technically be in there illegally.
Yeah,
if you didn't have one.
And you should respect their rules, and it's not a big deal. You just
it's
fill it out, and
it's not that expensive, and it's good for 180 days,
yeah,
right? And you can renew it, or you can just do a border hop. I think you can renew it in Mexico. I know people have tried to do that, like people who trying to become residents. And in fact,
I think
there's even hacks that people do where they let it expire intentionally and then go into the immigration office. And then while they're waiting for they pay a fine while they're waiting for their approval, they can stay. But it's pretty easy to get. It's basically you just show up, you pay the money, fill out the form, they give it to you.
And it's really important to save your receipt, because sometimes when you leave the country, it happened to us once, and we didn't have our receipt that we paid for FMMs, they make you repay the fee.
They don't care if you got the receipt on your credit card, on the email. They want to see the physical receipt. It doesn't matter if it's a photo of the receipt. It has to be the physical receipt.
Just keep everything all totogether, and
I think it was about $40, because I think when we left from Yucatan to Belize, we had to pay $200 because we didn't have the receipt. So one of the tricky thing that happened too for us is that when we flew back, so we left the car in Yucatan, flew back to the U.S., and then came back from the U.S. by plane. And the FMN, when you fly, is automatic. You don't have to do anything. It's digital. It's included. But the trouble is you don't get a receipt. If we were leaving by plane, then it wouldn't have mattered. But since we flew in by air and then leaving by land, we didn't have the receipt, so we had to pay a second time. So be aware of that.
Yeah.
And then you have to, just as all international travel, I think your visa or your passport has to have at least 6 months left before the expiration.
Yeah. And before you actually cross into the border is probably one of the first things we should talk about is getting insurance. So it's required to have at least liability insurance. We did full coverage. We got a really good deal. We like to use, there's different companies that you can use.
This is for your car. This is not for health insurance. It's car insurance.
Right, so this is for car insurance. And you like to use Discover Baja, but there's other companies also. There's Baja Bound, and then some other ones if you want to research it on those Facebook groups.
Yeah, so oftentimes you can get, if you're planning on staying more than a couple of weeks, it's a good deal to just buy for 6 months or even a year. We found that buying our car insurance for a whole year versus 6 months was only like, I don't know, $50 more, or maybe it was
like
less
compared to like a week.
Yeah, I mean,
like it was like something ridiculous.
It was a ridiculous amount. So I think, most of the work is like in writing the policy, and the actual coverage wasn't that bad. So for us, it was fine, because even though we can only be there for 6 months, we did end up coming back into Mexico. And because we paid for a whole year, we didn't have to buy it again.
Yeah. So other things that you should not bring with you, and if you usually have like a knife on your belt buckle.
Oh yeah, you cannot have a pocket knife. You cannot have, people have these everyday carry EDC folding pocket knives. Technically that's illegal. You're not supposed to have a pocket knife on you. I don't know of anybody who's gotten in trouble for it, but I have heard that you can get in trouble for it. So just be aware of that. And obviously, like other types of weapons, for sure.
Like
no
mace.
Guns, even ammo. Like if you have empty shell casing in your car from a trip to the shooting range or whatever, just laying around, that's a major red flag for people who are inspecting your vehicle. So make sure you clean all of that stuff out, unless you want a big hassle.
No hassles.
Yeah. And when I say hassle, I mean like, I heard stories about people going to jail and being held in cells for days for something like that. And that seems like a no big deal thing for the U.S. You have some empty shell casings from a day at the range, but when you cross into Mexico, they don't know why it's there.
Gotta follow the rules.
Yeah. So along those same lines, is Baja dangerous? Baja is dangerous in a sense that any place can be dangerous. I would say of all the places that we've been, Baja feels like just an extension to the United States. And it's an extension to the United States, but for people who haven't gone out of the country, it can feel very exotic to you because officially speak a different language, right? All the signs and all the stores and everything will be in a different language, use a different currency. So it's going to feel very foreign to you if it's the first time going there. However, you know, if you just use common sense, what we do is we don't drive at night. We don't speed. We don't break any rules. We don't run stop signs. You don't want to give anybody any reasons for them to hassle you, pull you over, whether it be the police or anybody else for that matter.
Basically, don't be a douchebag.
Yeah. Don't be a dick. And lastly, before you cross the border, and especially if you're bringing a pet, there's a couple of things that you want to be aware of.
So pets, if you have a cat or dog and you're bringing them to Baja with you, it's pretty easy compared to other border crossings as you head south or, you know, you're in Europe, places we've been before, is you just need to have proof of rabies with you. You don't need a health certificate or get a USDA stamp or anything like that. So it's pretty easy. Just be aware there's a lot of stray dogs down there. They have controlled rabies. As far as we know, Dan got actually bit last winter in La Paz by a dog. And when
it was impossible to get a rabies shot.
Yeah, nobody would give us because they say they eradicated rabies. So that's...
And turns out it's really hard to get rabies shots in the U.S. too. So,
so have your rabies paperwork. Just be aware of stray dogs and how reactive your pets are, and you just kind of have to be alert.
Dogs and cats are treated pretty similarly when it comes to border crossing. Basically, just have your vaccinations for them up to date, and be prepared to show them if they ask. They may not ask.
Yeah, they didn't seem to care.
You don't have to get like a import permit for the pets or anything, but you know, we're in Costa Rica now, and a lot of the country that we came through to get here, we've had to do that.
It's a big pain, but Mexico's easy.
Mexico's very easy. So that's it. Those are the main things that we think you should be aware of before you cross the border on your next Baja adventure. If you've never been, we highly recommend that you guys go. If you have any questions beyond what we've covered, feel free to ask them in the comments below. Baja is one of our favorite places in the world, and we feel like you guys will love them too. There's a lot more people heading down there these days, so to see Baja in the way that it's always been may not be like this forever. So it's better for you guys to check out Baja if you haven't been sooner than later.
And also look at timing on, I know there's a few large van events down south now, so if you want a more isolating wild feeling of Baja, maybe look up when those large van events are, and then you can avoid the areas that it takes place in during February and March.
Like we said, right now, middle of February, beginning of March, really good time to go. The weather is still nice before it gets too hot. If you're thinking about going down there, you don't have to go very far. You can just, you know, spend a week in San Felipe, and that's just as good a time as anything else that you can do. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.